This week on Culture Leaders, I sat down with Lothar Schupet, the acting CEO of Zeekr EU, a Chinese company that has expanded its EV auto manufacturing to the European market. We talk about this transformation, the cultural challenges within, and what it's like to be a startup, but not really a startup, and to leverage culture to drive results. This is a focused and practical conversation about leading people and scaling an organization from 0 to 60 fast. Please welcome to the podcast, Lothar Schupet. Well, Lothar, thank you so much for joining me. Tell us, what is your why?
Yeah, my why is in that interesting times of the automotive industry, what redefining of premium and also customer expectation means in that disruption we are in now. And that is really where we work every day on in order to succeed and to build a new brand.
Mm. So I want to walk through your leadership journey and how you are building this new brand and focusing on the strategy, but also what's changing inside the organization as you focus on results and focus on culture. So when you think about entering Europe, and what is the hardest part of making this business work right now?
Yeah, I think coming from the past of my more than now 25 years in the automotive industry, working for a traditional manufacturer, everything is set. You have a strong brand, you have a huge organization, everywhere an expert for every topic you have as a challenge, as an issue, or opportunity to evaluate. And you have a customer base, the business is running, operations are there. And all this you can swipe off the table when starting a new brand and think about how to build that up. And how to build that up, especially in Europe, in an industry which is, from a customer point of view, very critical, very much with the expectations on the highest level in terms of product quality, product features, product performances. And building all that up from scratch was, for me, one of the biggest challenges when we started to enter with the Zeekr in the market.
Mm. And so you have multiple results that you're focused on: products, markets, units. Which felt more at risk early on?
I think the first steps have been very interesting because we really, and people probably don't believe it when you say the first time, but we were meeting as the leadership team beginning 23 and sitting there and saying, okay, how do we start now? So you really build up a strategy how to enter the market, what distribution model you take, what IT systems you are setting up, how do you build the processes, how does the organization need to look like, what personalities you need, what experiences you need in the company in the startup phase, because there is a startup phase where you need more people with personalities who are doers, who are multi-handed, who does everything, make the hands dirty. Whereas in companies where I have worked before, you need experts. You need for every single activity someone who has tons of experiences or decades of experience on single fields to be the best. And building that from scratch was very, very interesting. I think the biggest challenge on the product side was starting also new. We didn't have any product experience, any feedback. So we needed to design a product which our ambition was always clearly stated. We don't simply export cars from China. So we needed a product which really fulfills customer requirements. So adapting this product strategy from the portfolio and then from the features up to how does suspension, driving experience need to be designed to be adapted for Europe, and then working on that almost a year doing the fine tuning before we then launched the cars, and then iterating fast that we have been delivering product quality. I think that was one of the biggest challenge. Another point which was for us, um, for sure, one of the big effort areas is building the structure and organization. So defining what are really the MVPs and not looking into dream castles, what we want to have in a year. So we needed to build stable operations with really minimum viable products in each area. So what we need to, at the end, sell cars, have a store, have an IT system to invoice, having a CRM system to keep customer experience up, and really building up that project. And yeah, these 2 points were probably the most challenging at the beginning of our journey.
So we started working together last year. Where were you at? So that was 2023. Where were you at last year when we started our journey together?
Yeah, so when you think about, I started as employee number 2 in that organization in January 23, and we have opened on in November 2 own stores in 2 countries, in the Netherlands and in Sweden. So in world record time, we have been building up all that what I described before, defining the strategies, the concepts, up to then remaking them operational and selling at the end of 23 the first cars, which were in Sweden and in the Netherlands. And selling cars doesn't mean we just have a store and sell them. We need to have the connectivity in the cars, the network provider. You need to have the charging partners, financial services partners. You need to have a supply chain for parts, which also work if you have a crash, if you have topics on it. So building all that up was really a startup phase, a year and probably a half until the operations getting better and better and stable. And then mid of 24, and that was the phase where we were from a startup coming into a little bit more grown up phase, where also the organization was not anymore growing and building. We are recruiting in a speed where we also did decisions on very fast pace. And we need to do compromises also with hiring and recruiting. And in the second phase of that journey, we needed to consolidate a little bit. We needed to think about building a culture. We needed to think about how to also transform and do a transition of the organizational structure, building management structures, decentralized organizations with own NSCs in the countries. And that is also where we came then with you in touch, saying, okay, how can we build that together with a professional supporter who have a lot of experience how to build culture?
So last year, what was the biggest challenge for you as a leader in, what you needed to see for the team?
Yeah, I think having talked about 23, the startup phase, 24, a little bit of consolidation, we learned in that first phases that we need all-rounders. We needed people also who thinking out of the box, who create customer journeys in a innovative way. And when business started, we learned very quickly, oh, the automotive industry has in principle not changed a lot. Yes, we maybe go into innovative models, we go into new ideas, but at the end, it's still the same industry, and we need people on board who have industry experience, also traditional industry experience. And we learned during that building up of the team that industry experience from traditional ones paired with new entrants of the market who already had maybe also failures behind them or having complete different approaches, agile working modes. That combination of people were the best match in our company. So we used the further growth phase to complement our teams with exactly that expertise and to create the right structures with that diversity, and building on that point of time the culture with you, because we also saw in that young company with not 100 years of having the next budget achieved, understanding the vision, understanding what we want to achieve, the key results to be formulated in a way. Every year they are changing completely. That was one of the challenges then in the next year, where we were tackling with the management team all of these structural things.
Okay, so let me just repeat back to you what I heard because I want to make sure I'm understanding. You talked about needing, because you're a new company, broad expertise across. I'm willing to do it all. And then, as opposed to in your previous experience, you needed deep expertise. And what I'm hearing you say is that last year you realized you needed a little bit of both. You needed the deep expertise to complement the broad workings of the people that were on the team. Is that right? And
Yeah,
you needed culture work. One more thing you said, you need culture work because the goals are changing so fast because you're scaling and growing so quickly. You need people to wrap their head around what the new goals are more frequently. Is that it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in addition to that, one big challenge for us was that if you think about how a traditional company works, and I have lived that for more than 2 decades, you are boxed in structures, you're boxed in legacies, you are somehow caught in repetitive meetings, governance topics, which we learned with these people who joined our company, um, with that experience and not having the agile mindset, thinking out of the box, breaking out of that cage somehow. We're really not matching our pace, and we're really having issues and challenges to cope with the requirements we had at that time, and where we probably still are. I mean, it's not that we slowed down now after being in Europe more or less rolled out. It's the pace is keeping on, and that was the challenge why we needed to engage, bringing a culture forward, that being very clear what's our vision, key results to deliver, to have no doubts how the organization moves forward.
What do you think was preventing the clarity before? Why was it simply because it was changing so quickly? Because theoretically, it's still changing quickly, right? I mean, why wasn't there clarity before? How did you know that something had to change?
I think when I was proud of that, I remember in the first years when we said, oh, we have in the first year around 100 people, second year 150 people, and we have 60 nationalities. We have uh, from the background, probably 30, 40 different brands in house now from the new colleagues. And everyone is interpreting, due to their experience from the past, things differently, and taking tasks, challenges, solutions forward in their own way of interpretation. And that is what was for us very challenging. There, where we said we need to create a culture and a very consistent approach across the company.
So that's really interesting. If so, that was your, as the leader, that's your perspective and that's what you did. If I were to ask people across the organization, would they have described the priorities and the challenges the same way, or do you think they had a different perspective? Where did the interpretation differ, if at all?
I think it was a little bit a mixed situation. Of course, in many areas, it was clear what we wanted to do. It was a very simple picture. We want to enter Europe, we want to launch Europe, and we want to get successful in the automotive industry. But when we were discussing about business model, what are the expectations to dealers? What are the real sales ambitions we are having market by market, launching then in 2 years, 12 markets? You are getting really diversified also with language topics, with decentralized organizations. And of course, you had a lot of new partners on board and no guidelines and no even brand papers where we say we want to be, because we were still in the learning phase. And step by step, we were manifesting what we believe is the right approach for Europe, because Zika in China has a complete different approach than we have. The basic principles and brand values are there, but the interpretation towards the European consumer needed to be redefined. And if you have talked to people, you had uh, people who left, like myself also, companies with a strong brand heritage after decades, and came because all of us were combining one thing most of the time, which was we want to disrupt the industry and we want to redefine it. We want to do things better than we couldn't do in the old company. And that is what has been happening, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, what were did people believe? Did they actually believe that the strategy would work? Like, where was the skepticism strongest?
Yeah, I think we had that. I think I told that story 1,000 times with all the recruitings when we had people we needed to convince about Zika. They had all the concerns, having seen Chinese brands entering Europe and exiting. So most of the anxieties to join our company was, how long will Zika exist? Will there be exit scenarios moving out? Will there be maybe bankruptcies, which we have seen on other companies? Uh, then there were the perspective of this Chinese culture. They don't understand each other and they want to decide everything. And the Europeans in the organizations are just operationally executing, but no one is deciding and no one is really taking decisions. And there were, for sure, with all these anxieties, the opportunities, because everyone knew the pace of Chinese brands and companies is very strong. And they were all interested to learn about how we have now the chance and opportunities to really change the things they were not able to change. So that mix of anxieties with opportunities, we needed to turn around into trust and into also a relationship that they were believing in the strategy we had moving into Europe, and the trust into the Geely uh, company and Zika brand to stay, survive, and make it happen, that the successful launch turns into a sustainable business.
That's really interesting. So, what had to happen for people to really start believing it was real?
That's an interesting question. I think the uh, the interesting part, we started already after a few months. We had a kind of habit because we were celebrating the firsts. So we had the first website live, we had the first ordering tools live, the first order in, the first dealer open, the first IT solutions ready. We had the first partner on board, and so on. So, and it's still continuing. The first customer in Italy, the first achievements and celebrations we needed to bring forward. So we were celebrating as a team small steps, little successes regularly, to really make it tangible how we are moving forward. And it was very simple. We even didn't need a lot of efforts because there were regularly coming up these things. And when we then started to move up in the EV segments as a successful sales and really gaining trust from customers, that were the first big steps we made, where people really said, wow, that is really turning now into a success story. And there is not a nice dream castle. It's really something which is turning into a serious business. And I think this combination of a lot of first wins and smaller wins moving forward, with then also the success we needed, this gave us the clear acceleration.
I'm also interested in hearing about when something didn't happen, right? When there was failures or someone did not deliver. What happened in those moments and how did it affect the team?
Yeah, I think the failures were probably one of the strongest learning curves we had. And we were defining our mindset and culture very clearly as we need to do failures, or we need to have failures, or need to have errors to learn, because we are starting from scratch. So we had very clearly defined with the team saying, let's test things out, let's be bold, let's trust in our experience as a team. That's why I mentioned before, we have realized very quickly you need to have people who ground the innovators, the people who think out of the box and have never lived in the industry, had nice ideas, but they were not able to really being realized. But um, learning from mistakes, having the ability as employees also testing out and doing errors. That was, I think, the secret formula to move fast forward, and also to getting more and more successful. And it was not only it's so easy said, but it was also happening on the product side. And you can imagine, and I have worked for the company where product had a 7-year life cycle. If you wanted to change software or little things, it took years, where we were ready with all the SDV, software defined vehicle technology, to iterate quickly. So after we launched the first cars in the market, the first customer feedback were immediately coming in. And we have a very unique situation in Europe as Zika, where we not only are here a sales company, we have a footprint of an own technology center and R&D, and the global design sits in Sweden. So we could iterate quickly feedback from the consumer and adapting to the market requirements.
Mm, that's interesting. Okay, so what would you say are the 2 or 3 behaviors that changed that made the biggest difference for your results?
So are you referring already also to the cultural project, or in general?
Yeah, no, in general, like what behaviors of your team had to change that made the biggest impact? Hopefully the culture work influenced that, but really I want to know what they had to do differently, you know?
I think that there are few perspectives. Let's say one big challenge I haven't elaborated so much on it was the cultural differences between China and Europe. Expectation of business achievements, steering of the business, target setting has a complete different culture. And if you haven't lived in a Chinese company, you cannot really feel it, because it's a lot about really understanding, reading between the lines, and feeling also the inefficiencies, because you cannot talk the same language. I'm still talking with all my management in China with a translator. So every meeting is uh, is slow and need to be precise preparation to make clear what we need to align. And uh, that behavior was also one of the biggest challenges for me as a leader for many, many years in a performance company, where performance is interpreted in achieving the results, making things happen, and celebrating them with the team. Whereas in China, the target setting is even be revised when you're coming close to 100%. And I had once an interesting call from China where I was at close to 100% target achievement, where they called me and say, Lothar, I advise to you, please revise your target, because you will be the only one in the top management circle in China who is close to 100%. All the others are at 60, 70, which is fine. And you are perceived as a low baller who is just not ambitious enough. So accepting their way of thinking, and also adapting the entire organization towards their steering, that was, I think, one of the big changes we made during the first years already, to have uh, a quality and excellent um, collaboration with the headquarters and us. That was more the external steering. Internally, and I think one big lever was also the cultural project we have initiated then, where we really were drilling down our discussion, what we want to achieve and how will we achieve it, with which cultural beliefs, making clear that everything we do it for our key results. And in a startup and then grown up company where it's not a huge complex organization, it was quite simplified what we need to achieve. And it was very clear. It was sales volume, of course, but also building the network and building the products. And putting that in a very simplified equation, result equation, communicating it to the company and repeating it every 2 weeks in our business updates, which we do with all hands still today. We're having every 2 weeks a very clear update showing the results equation and living these cultural beliefs also. That I think made a big difference to us.
Which of those beliefs, trust, people first, let's move, required the biggest behavioral shift?
Um, I think for us, trust squared is the strongest cultural belief, which is on purpose squared, not because it's amplified, but it's a two-directional way which is built by accountability and by transparency. And that was very important for us when we said trust squared. It need to come with accountability, taking accountability for results, taking accountability for all our actions. And that was especially for the people who have been coming from non-startups, have been coming from traditional company with hundred thousands of people, have been a really mindset shift, acting entrepreneurial, and really that made a difference. Because also in my old world, you were managing your team, but the decision was done by 100 different circles and feedback papers, and it was iterated 5 times, 10 times before it came to a decision. So you were sure that if something happens, there are 10 other people who also co-created that you always can say, it was not my mistake. And that is what really is different. And that's why Trust Squared was so important for us and needed exactly that mindset shift.
Mm. I wonder, what do you think was the greatest driver of people adopting that trust squared belief? How did you as leaders get people to opt in?
I think every leader knows that from experiences, what is the most motivating factor as a leader is that you can take decisions, that you have your freedom, you can drive the things you can create, and that room and that freedom were created by Trust Squared, because we also built, besides the cultural beliefs, uh, projects which were then called Power to Markets, where exactly these cultural beliefs were used to give the power decentralized to the people who are accountable in the market. Headquarters steering was reduced, and the accountability and decision power in the markets has been increased. And several of these projects of changing of procedures, of also meeting governance and so on and so forth, that has been, I believe, the driver of the motivation. And at the end, as you know, it's nice to have it on a paper, but then it need to be lived by experiences. So people
Yeah.
needed to experience these things, and not only once or twice. It needed to be a consistent experience in the company that they turned that nice statement on a paper into really a belief and really into a culture.
So, is there any story you can think of, a particular experience that was a profound shift in the belief around trust squared, for example? Because everybody wants trust, and I think this is where people can really learn from your leadership journey is like, what did it actually look like? An experience that was created that shifted the belief in a concrete way for people on the team that then led to that trust being built.
Yeah, what is maybe a tangible example? If I refer to a nice story which we had when we were discussing the governance in the markets, how they can decide on quarterly campaigns. So every quarter in the automotive industry, you define your campaign, you need to produce assets in marketing, and then you go live on the channels. And of course, you need to have specific commercial offers which need to be decided. And at the starting phase, with a very centralized organization, so a headquarter was with two markets, Sweden and Netherlands, we were one team. We were driving it all together. And out of that growth phase with only two markets, we have been centralizing all the decisions. So every quarterly campaign, every commercial discount has been going through headquarter and have been approved by headquarter before it goes out. And when we started to grow and getting a bigger company with many, many markets, we said we cannot now decide everything for the markets. And it is also not the way how people are motivated. So we were discussing the new governance. And one experience I remember today was where, of course, the people who have been building the headquarter were very much keen to keep that control and to work on that. And just very easy and little discussion points where we said, guys, if we want to live trust squared and you just name these cultural beliefs in the discussion, then we need to go this way. If we don't believe in trust squared, then we can go that way. And it made really the shift in the perception of people that they really went then changing their mind and also taking decisions in a different way.
Wow, that's such a great story. So it was challenging leadership with the beliefs that we had just discussed. I mean, you're repeating the results equation, you're repeating the cultural beliefs, right? And so then you're realizing in order to create trust, it's also let's move, right? You want decisions happening faster and you want people taking action and enabling that kind of timely decision making. And so you're saying, well, if this is what our belief is, then this is what the action would be. Therefore, we need to change our governance principles and systems. And the leadership team heard that and they said, okay, let's change. It was that
Yeah,
easy?
I of course it is not black and white and not so easy, but it created exactly that attention and perception that people were rethinking what they have argumented before and saying,
Yeah,
yes,
right.
you're right. We are argumenting in a way, and we even haven't recognized ourselves that it's not following the belief. So let's rediscuss it in a different way. And I think building a culture is, even though it feels like, okay, it's something subconsciously building up, but it's really about repetition, structure, and repeating on the right occasions uh, exactly these experiences. And I have been telling you the story before that we have still every 2 weeks all hands meeting as a business update, where we also show at the beginning of every meeting recognition cards according to this cultural beliefs. So they are with the entire team. Now we have been growing above 200 people, and it's still there that a recognition card is shown. Uh, hey, this is Tom. He has this week or 2 weeks ago really lived according to our cultural belief. People first. He put the customer into the attention of his action with that. Uh, Whatever is the example.
Right.
contributing to our key results. And repeating that day by day, it gets into a culture. It gets into not anymore something which is on the paper, it's really experience.
Yeah, those are the rhythms or the systems that make these behavior changes stick over time, right? I'm curious what results, if any, you can tie to, like, for example, to these behavior changes. So in the example about the marketing campaign budgets and decentralizing that decision making, did that decentralization of the decision making unlock a new result? What was the Are there any outcomes that you can say, and this is what happened because of that?
I think that is very, very hard to measure because the result of culture is, to my mind, it's forming a behavior which leads to results, which at the end can be proven because we have the last 2 years overachieving our results. Um, Considering the story before, we have been raising the targets every quarter up towards our even performance to China, but I think it's hard to measure. What we do, and it's a kind of soft measuring, at least not with hard numbers and facts, is that in our people review and evaluation performance, we have these three cultural beliefs incorporated. So every person in the organization gets, in combination with the output, the really factual performance uh, in the official tool. Also, the three cultural beliefs evaluated. So how have them uh, been considered during the year and or the period of evaluation and the quarter, and how much did these things also led to tangible parts which increased results. So it is hard to measure, but at the
Yeah.
end, I think it's how to connect the dots and make it also tangible for at least soft measurements.
So I have your results equation here. There's the vision, which is 60%, 60, 80, 100 by 2027. 60% of product segment, 80% of EU market coverage, 100% self-sustainable, right? And then you've got 3 plus X products, 8 markets live, 5,883 units. How are you doing on those key results? Like, give me a sense of, are you out? You said you're outperforming, you're increasing the goals. Were those the increased goals or those the first goals?
So these are the so let's take. I think you have still the old equation from 25, right?
This is the first one. Okay.
Yeah. So we have been setting, and I think that was also uh, adapting to the Chinese culture. We have been setting in the year beginning 2025 our key results in terms of product coverage, which was translated then tangible for the people. We need to launch 4 models in Europe, or up to the fourth model in Europe, which we clearly achieved and or overachieved. So the fourth model was launched by end of 2025. We have said, and that is, of course, then a very clear sales target. We want to achieve a specific sales volume, which we also achieved, and quarter by quarter even overachieved. And we changed that key result twice during the year up because we saw the forecast is moving up. And our third one, which was the key result for success, was that we have to launch markets. And the number of markets was penetrated all the time. Successes were communicated publicly, that everyone understood that three key results needed to be achieved. And also that 12 markets we have been overachieving then in 2025. So at least the year 2025 is a very, very good example how that has helped to have a consistent understanding. And if you ask, and that's the proof point in the organization today, uh, I believe anyone they will understand for what we are doing it, and they will understand what the key results are.
That's amazing. I wonder if it's even possible. Do you have, could I see like the 2025 results achievement, like compared? I have this old results equation. Do you have like what were the final numbers for 25? So we could see like, here's what the goals were and here's how we blew it out of the water.
Of course, we are able to show that. The question is, we are not communicating outside volumes. It's
Right.
more an
Okay.
internal target, which is probably difficult to also use in your communication. But
Right.
of course, we can share that you really see the tangible results.
Yeah, I'd be curious. So you launched 4 products, right? More than 3. The goal was 3 and you launched
Three
4?
plus one was our. We always said plus one because the plus one was a preparation phase in
Oh,
2025.
cool.
The official launch was in January, then in Brussels Motor Show. So we needed to prepare everything. So that's why 3 plus 1.
Okay. And you
Yeah.
did 4 plus 1 or you did 3 plus
No,
1?
no, we did the 3 plus 1. We could tweak, and we talked about it. We did a special edition, which was even 3 plus 2. But I think we stayed with the main models, which were at the end then 3 plus 1 models.
Okay. And then markets, you blew 8 you were, your goal was 8, you did way more than that, right?
Yes. We
Yeah.
started with
And then
8. We started with 8. We moved up to 10. And then I think we launched at the end of the year 12. And
yeah.
imagine, in 1 year, we launched 12 markets in Europe. If you
Yeah, that's crazy.
if you
And that
imagine
was
what
also
pace
8
is
plus
behind.
1, but
Again,
you
please?
got, your goal was 8 plus 1, but you got 12.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. And then units, I know you don't want to talk about numbers, but can you give us a sense of like percentage more than the goal was?
Yeah. So we have been and I put it into equation of the initial target was increased by 18% over the year, uh, in 2 steps, and even that last 18% increase of target we have overachieved by 8%.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, that's so cool. I love just hearing your success and how you brought, we started this conversation by talking about your why, and you brought your why to life, through the clarity that you created, through the beliefs that you aligned around and then reinforced, through the trust that was created, the accountability that people took because of all the clarity and the leadership alignment, right? And then the results speak for themselves. I mean, it's such a great story.
Yeah, I think we were really happy also with the commitment of the team, because at the beginning, that there are friends and haters of culture in a fast moving environment, because the calendars are full, extra workshops are hurting, and then you need to put extra tools and measures in, and everyone is anyhow with without a single minute. But we were committed. So we were taking the time, doing with the full leadership team, also the first line level leaders, workshops on cultural belief to co create them and not bring them top down in. And I, from today's perspective, can really state that it was a fun journey. And at the end, it paid really out.
Yeah, incredible story. I just love hearing it. So, I have one more question, which is how I always end these conversations, which is, what is something that you don't get asked about very often that you wish you were asked more often so you could speak to it?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the automotive industry right now in Europe, especially for a century being successful and on the top, um, and thinking about culture in Europe, how people are moving in Europe, talking about challenges. I think what is interesting that nowadays no one in Europe asks anymore how uncomfortable a successful transformation should feel, and what sacrifices or extra miles also need to be done by each of us to make that happen. We're not anymore asking these questions, which, and I can refer to China, are asked there every day, which probably have been asked in Germany after the maybe Second World War, building up the industry, have been asked. Now we feel in our comfort zone in Europe, and that's why also that I believe different speed and success of the new entrants is sometimes now overpacing performance of the traditionals.
What a beautiful way to end. This has been so illuminating. I am so grateful that you came on the show and are sharing your leadership insights and your growth journey. And people are going to learn so much from this. And it's just really exciting to be able to watch your journey. And we will keep watching, certainly over the next years as you continue to grow.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and it was really a pleasure and exciting talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait for the world to hear it and for us to share this. And it's going to be wonderful.